This session I'd like to talk about aircraft performance. Now the thing about aircraft performance is that it's designed and manufactured with certain structural limitations. Now in that design, the manufacturer has put out a manual that shows what are the different limitations that this structure can withstand. Well, what do we need on an airplane? We do need fuel to get from point A to point B. We also need passengers, and that we need pilots, and sometimes we have, especially in commercial operations, we have passengers, and we also have cargo. Now, a combination of these three, the pilot must consider the weight of each of these at different locations on the aircraft to ensure that the structural limitations are not ignored. So we look at the different restrictions we've got, and so I'll put up here we've got when we've got some takeoff, we've got a takeoff weight restriction. So we've got to consider the aircraft taking off. Now, what we need to do is, as it's taking off, we need to avoid excessive loads on the undercarriage so that we don't have too much stress on the structure as it's taking off. Now, we've got to, what they've factored in is they've also factored in side loads on the aircraft by crosswind. So yes, that's even part of the loading that this system has taken into consideration, and they've even considered the loads on the aircraft from going over rough surface. So rough surface can also add to the load on the undercarriage. And the other load that we've got, of course, is the loads of our passengers, fuel and cargo. So we've got to keep in mind that we cannot exceed a particular takeoff weight. So we've got to add the fuel, we've got to add the passengers, add the cargo, add the weight of the aircraft, and all together that needs to be under a certain amount. The other restriction we've got is landing weight restriction. So I'll put here landing weight restriction. Now, as the aircraft lands, there are other factors to consider. We've got to remember that we want to bring it down safely, and we've got to be able to glide it through the air and touch down in a safe manner. Now, some manuals have, like the smaller planes, they just have one takeoff and landing weight restriction. For example, the Cessna 172 will put out a manual, and they may say that the maximum, what they call the maximum weight limitation of a Cessna 172 might be the same for both takeoff and landing, and that's approximately 1,203 kilograms, or if you're Imperial, 2,650 pounds. So when you add the fuel plus the passengers plus the cargo plus the weight of the aircraft, if it exceeds this maximum weight, then you cannot take off. You need to unload some cargo, unload passengers, or even have a plane with less fuel. And finally, the other restriction is called the zero fuel weight restriction. Zero fuel weight restriction. And this really applies to the larger aircraft, the A380s, etc., where they give you the weight of the aircraft that it cannot exceed. The only extra that's taking the fuel out. So they say the maximum, when you add the passenger plus cargo plus the aircraft, it cannot exceed a particular zero fuel weight. Then you can add in the fuel, of course, can go on top of that zero fuel weight restriction so that the aircraft can actually fly from A to B. So this session is pretty much talking about aircraft weight restrictions. It's to do with aircraft performance, and that's when a plane which is designed to land safely, to take off safely, and to fly from A to B safely, we've got to make sure that our weight restrictions are well and truly under the maximums allowable weights, so that we are flying an aircraft in a safe manner. You cannot compromise safety. So here is 3 new terms: takeoff weight restriction, landing weight restrictions, and zero fuel weight restrictions. So until I talk to you again, stay happy.